Greetings and welcome to the March 2024 edition of the Fraser Valley Presale Pulse, bringing you the latest real estate intelligence on the Valley's presale and resale marketplace over the past 30 days. I'm Susanna Gonzalez.
And I'm Brittany Reimer.
All right, let's get into it. How is the presale market looking, Britt?
Yeah, so we definitely are feeling a lot more activity over in the Fraser Valley, Suze. I think the general consensus right now is that traffic has actually picked up, and many presentation centers and developers are gearing up for what we hope is going to be a busy spring ahead.
That's right. Now, I heard Walnut Park has now sold 107 out of their 127 units since they launched in December.
Yeah, they definitely had an impressive sales campaign, given that December is typically a tougher month for developers to launch projects, given slower sales activity during the winter time. But keep in mind, this was a time where we had very little inventory, so they saw good success, but there wasn't a lot of picking at that time in the market either.
Not a lot of options. Good point. Now, the sentiment seems to be that the difference in activity levels seen in January and February compared to the fall of 2023 has been a significant improvement. The Commons also seems to be experiencing this. Now, they launched back in October and had what seemed to be a bit of a slow start, but their first release is now 80% sold, with 20% of these sales having occurred in the last 2 months.
Yeah, and it's not just that the condo product picking up, Suze. Last time we checked in with Newbury, also by Zenterra, they had sold around 60 units at the end of, or by the end of December. They are now down to their final 5 homes, and we continue to see a slight shift in momentum for that townhouse product in the Valley, something that we really haven't seen for the last 18 to 24 months, and something we touched on in our last month's episode.
Yeah, great news. Is the Fraser Valley back?
I mean, it definitely feels that way, and we can't neglect to mention Juno. They reached construction financing on the very first weekend of sales, moving about 185 homes. Now, this is impressive, especially considering our current market conditions, and it was nice to see that type of activity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having that flexible deposit structure made it an attractive option for investors and users alike.
Yeah, speaking of investors, what we've heard is that most of the investors actually opted for their 1 bedrooms at Juno's rather than their studios, which is something that we don't typically see.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think there's a few different factors. Studios obviously having a higher price per square foot and didn't include the parking. And typically studios are harder to sell in a resale context. So I just feel like some of the resale realtors are getting a bit more educated on this type of product and swaying their investor clients more towards a 1-bedroom offering instead.
Yeah, now I am curious to see how sales will continue to go along now that their more desirable units have been snatched up.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll go right into tempo, I suspect, which is good for the rest of the market because we can hopefully come out and see another wave of momentum with different product in Surrey City.
Now let's move on to some pre-sale features. We're going to start out with a project that's coming into Langley City, Scale by Scale Projects.
Yeah, so Scale will be a 6-story wood frame building featuring 75 homes ranging in size from studio to 2-bedroom and flexes, very close proximity to the future SkyTrain.
Now, they recently had their grand opening and began writing contracts for their realtor database a couple of weeks prior. Do you know a little bit about how they did?
Yeah, so it sounds like they had a relatively successful grand opening. It was quite busy with around 20 deals so far. I think one thing that they are struggling with are investors. It seems most of the buyers that they have been seeing are mostly end users to date. A lot of the first-time home buyers with help from family versus investor crowd that they were really expecting to show up for this product. So a lot of their marketing was highlighting their proximity to the future SkyTrain. I think they were definitely expecting at least some interest from that investor market. Now, Suze, what are your thoughts on why they might not be seeing them?
Now, I think there could be a few reasons for that. First off, the price per square foot for Scale does seem to be a bit on the high side. It's sitting at the high $800 per square foot. Even projects in Willoughby, which has to date held a premium over Langley City, are offering lower price points than this. Therefore, it may be a bit hard for investors to see the value.
I think it's a good point, Suze. I remember when Unity launched, it's very close to Scale, and they sold quite fast and saw quite a bit of investors. But that was definitely due to their price point. If I remember correctly, they were blending more in the low 800s.
Now, Whitetail Homes is a well-known developer in the Fraser Valley. Looking at their website, Scale seems to be Scale Projects' first development, and we all know how important developer reputation is.
Yeah, absolutely. It was always be really tough to try to sell a development without, that history, especially when there are already so many well-established development partners in the Fraser Valley. I also think Sales Gallery, we talk about this a lot, having that full show home experience when you're going head-to-head with other programs that are offering that. I find sometimes that can be hard for buyers to really envision the space and, the programming.
Now, speaking of well-established developers, let's move on to our next project. We have another development coming up in Langley, but this time it's a master planned townhome community, and that is none other than Cascadia by Streetside Development.
Yeah, and so Cascadia is expected to bring over 200 townhomes into Langley with units ranging from 2-bed plus dens all the way to 4-bedroom homes. It seems their first release will consist of 25 homes ranging in sizes from 2-bed plus dens to 3-bed plus dens.
It's hard to tell for sure without seeing the rest of their plans, but it seems all the currently released 3-bedrooms will be offering double garages. We know how important that double garage is to purchasers.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when so many 3-beds now either have tandem or even single garages. I think it really adds to that single-family home feel when you have that double garage element.
Now, the size of the Cascadia community also allows them to have some amenities you otherwise wouldn't really see in other pre-sale townhouses right now in Langley, and I think that will also have a big draw.
A massive draw. It looks like about 25,000 square feet of outdoor and indoor amenities, including a clubhouse, gym, entertainment lounge, communal kitchen, co-work space. There's a lot of boxes ticked off there.
Yeah, it becomes a really good balance for those that may need more room but appreciate the amenities that come with condo living. I hope they watched the Vancouver Presale Pulse where we talked about the famous Polygon Clubhouse. Now, I've also heard that a few of the units at Cascadia will be offering live-work arrangements as well.
Yeah, it's great to see that Langley is, starting to innovate and think like this. I'm definitely intrigued to see how this product plays out over the next few months. I think that Cascadia will really set the tone for, the Langley townhouse market. It will be beginning previews March 9th with homes beginning in the mid 800s. So really, really sharp price point. I think that product will do well. All right, so let's move into the resale stats. Looks like the sales momentum we saw in January continues to persist in February. For the second month in a row, we are seeing an increase in sales activity, a total of 1,235 resale transactions for February.
Yes, a 44% increase in sales compared to this time last year. However, before we get too excited, we should remember that we're still about 21% below the 10-year average. So we're getting busier, but still a long ways from the peak.
That is a really good thing to point out, Suze. We are definitely not out of the woods just yet, but it is a nice break, just seeing some momentum back in this market. I've heard on the streets from some of our resale agents as well that there is multiple offer scenarios back happening in some pockets, specifically in Walnut Grove and the Langley area.
And sales transactions aren't the only area where we're seeing more activity. Active listings has also increased for the month of February. We saw a total of 5,500 listings in February, which is 16% above the 10-year seasonal average.
Yeah, and while demand is currently high enough for us to remain in a seller's market, if we keep seeing an influx of inventory without the same appreciation in demand, it's likely we could trickle back into more of a balanced market state.
Yeah, you're right, Britt. Our sales to listings ratio is currently at 22%, but if inventory continues to rise above average levels while demand persists below, that is a likely reality. I think the next few months will be crucial in determining how this goes.
Yeah, and all signs seem to be pointing to some rate cuts, hopefully in the near future. I think that a lot of buyers are just beginning to resurface and get off the sidelines. I suspect that we will see a lot more sales activity come later springtime, especially as we creep closer to that potential interest rates cuts in the fall.
Now, what does all this mean for prices? February actually ended the streak of 6 consecutive price decreases. With a benchmark price of $994,000 across all product types, we saw a 0.9% increase in prices. Surprisingly, single detached homes saw the highest month-over-month increase at 1.3%.
Yeah, and it definitely looks like prices are going in the same direction as activity in the market. I will say on the pre-sale side, it is important to remember, the buyers are really coming off the sidelines for good value. They're still looking for incentives. They're still looking for, low deposits. And so while we are seeing a bit of an uptick, I don't think we're going to see a ton of appreciation in pricing over the next 3 months. I think it's a great time as a buyer to get into the market for that reason.
Especially before things, hopefully heat up a little bit in the fall.
Absolutely.
Well, Britt, I believe that wraps up the latest edition of the Fraser Valley Presale Pulse. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and Newswire, our daily email newsletter providing you with the latest real estate news. We want you to stay informed and be real estate intelligent.
And thank you to the Peterson and MLA sales and marketing team for allowing us into the new Frame Presentation Center. Feel free to come and check it out yourself now that we're open daily. Thanks for joining us for this month's Presale Pulse.